I woke before dawn, as I always did, when the house held the cool, sacred hush of early morning. The kettle hissed softly as I filled my chipped white mug, its faded blue rim a keepsake from a sunlit yard sale Thomas and I wandered through in our first married summer, laughing over treasures others discarded. Steam fogged the kitchen window, and beyond it, Reno's sky shimmered with a lavender glow, promising another dry Nevada day. My African violets stood defiant on the sill, their purple petals small miracles against the desert's harshness. I watered them sparingly, as Thomas had taught me, whispering a good morning to him, gone 3 years but alive in the quiet rituals that anchored me. At 68, a retired school librarian, my life was framed by routine. Toast with apricot jam, a careful sweep of the kitchen floor, the local paper folded neatly into quarters. My home on this quiet street never rushed me. Its rooms carried echoes of our life. Thomas's wobbly bookcase, which he refused to replace, saying, "Good things lean a little." The dining table we sanded together, its grain worn smooth by years of shared meals. Elaine's handprints pressed into the backyard concrete, frozen from a laughing June day when she was 7, her small fingers wild with joy. By noon, I set the table for Sunday lunch, choosing a green tablecloth that caught the light and a small glass vase that made daisies stand proud. The roast chicken filled the kitchen with warmth, its scent rich with butter and patience, basted as my mother had taught me. I adjusted the napkins, smoothed the cloth, and checked the oven, the rhythm of preparation steadying my nerves. At 12:30, the front door swung open without a knock. Elaine entered, her sleek dark hair framing a cream dress that hung on her like a choice already made. Her face was tight, her smile a thin line of purpose. Mark followed, his thumbs tapping his phone, a scowl creasing his lips as if the air in my home were somehow wrong. They didn't notice the daisies. Mark sank into Thomas's chair, flipping on the TV, its low hum an intrusion against the kitchen's warmth. Elaine kissed my cheek, her lips cool, her eyes avoiding mine as she perched on a dining chair, her posture rigid, like she was counting the seconds until escape. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her voice sharp, unfamiliar, not the soft cadence of the girl who once read library books at this table. "This house is too big for you now. You'd be happier in a community, with people your age, on a schedule." Mark muttered, "Safety," twice, his tone slick, like a salesman pitching something I couldn't refuse. The roast sat on the counter, juices settling, ready to carve, but my breath caught, my hands tightening on the carving fork. "This is my home," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. Elaine's smile was brittle, not reaching her eyes. "We've researched it, Mom. It's easier for everyone." The clock on the wall ticked once, loud as a judge's gavel, and the room, so familiar, felt suddenly borrowed. Thursday dawned with a sharp chill, Reno's air heavy with iron and dust. I was folding laundry, the soft rhythm of cotton against my hands a small comfort, when a knock rattled the front door. Mark pushed in without waiting, followed by a man in a crisp gray suit, a clipboard and measuring tape swinging from his belt. Elaine trailed behind, her smile stiff, her eyes darting to the floor, the walls, anywhere but my face. "This is the appraiser," Mark announced, his voice loud, as if I were deaf or irrelevant. The man moved through my living room, brushing past framed photos of Elaine's birthdays, Thomas's proud grin at her graduation. He tapped walls with his knuckles, scribbled notes about outdated plumbing, cracked tiles, a sagging roof, each word stripping another piece of my life. Elaine nodded at his critiques, agreeing my kitchen was dated, the bathrooms in need of modern fixtures. I stood by the window, clutching the lace curtain I'd sewn during sleepless nights, feeling invisible in my own home. The appraiser left within an hour, his notes carrying away my dignity like so much dust. That evening, Elaine returned alone, her arms full of glossy brochures for retirement communities. Images of seniors playing cards under harsh fluorescent lights, their smiles too perfect. "They have activities, Mom," she said, as if I'd been waiting my whole life for bingo nights. She slid the papers across the dining table where Thomas and I once paid bills, planned trips we never took. "I'm not leaving," I said firmly, my voice cutting through the quiet. Her lips tightened. "Mark says you forgot the stove last week. You could have burned the house down." The lie stung, and she knew it. Her eyes flickered with guilt before she looked away. My heart lurched, but I held her gaze until she faltered, gathering the brochures and leaving without another word. The next morning, Mark returned with a lawyer, a man whose polished shoes clicked against my hardwood floor. He spread documents across the dining table, their ink sharp with arrogance. "Mrs. Hale, sign here for a simple property transfer," he said, his voice smooth as glass. "Transfer?" I whispered, the word heavy. "This is my home." Mark leaned forward, his eyes sharp as knives. "You're not capable of deciding for yourself. Elaine's your heir, acting in your best interest." The lawyer cleared his throat, mentioning a mental incapacity petition if I resisted. The daisies from Sunday had wilted in their vase, their petals drooping as if ashamed. My throat burned, but I refused to cry in front of them. "I need time," I said, my voice barely audible. "1 week," Mark snapped, his tone final. When the door slammed behind them, I sank into Thomas's chair, the worn leather cradling me as I cried for the first time since his funeral, the house echoing my grief. That night, the house felt cavernous, the hallway clock ticking like a countdown. I wandered like a shadow, touching walls, tracing the edges of framed photos, Elaine's gap-toothed smile, Thomas's hand on her shoulder. In Thomas's desk, I searched for something to anchor me, finding only bills, faded receipts, postcards from trips we never took. Then my fingers brushed a folder wedged in the back, bound with a small brass lock. My heart raced. Thomas never used locks. I rummaged, finding a tiny key taped inside an old gardening book, hidden between pages about desert soil. The lock clicked open, revealing a will dated 6 months before his death, leaving everything, house, accounts, properties, to me, with Elaine inheriting only if she cared for me with love and respect. There were deeds to 3 Carson City apartment buildings, fully paid, stock certificates in a thriving Nevada tech firm, bank statements showing wealth I never knew existed. A sealed letter in Thomas's looping script read, "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I hid this to spare you worry. You gave me your youth, your strength, your love. This is my gift to you, so you'll never fear. I never trusted Mark. His ambition hides something darker. If Elaine lets him turn against you, use this to protect yourself, not to hurt, but to teach." Tears stained the letter as I pressed it to my chest. Thomas had given me armor, a fortress I hadn't known I needed. Monday arrived with a restless wind sweeping dust across the porch. I stacked Thomas's documents on the desk, revealing just enough to make my point. At 9 o'clock, a moving truck rumbled into the driveway, its engine loud against the morning's quiet. Mark stormed in, broad chest puffed like a conqueror, Elaine behind him, her hand resting on her stomach, pregnant, a secret she hadn't shared. 2 movers waited awkwardly in the doorway. "Mom, the movers are here," Elaine snapped, her voice clipped. "We need to start." I sat in Thomas's chair, my chipped mug warm in my hands. "I'm not leaving. This house, and much more, belongs to me." Mark barked a laugh. "You're living on a librarian's pension." I placed a deed before him, the paper crisp. "Did you enjoy your apartment, Mark? The rent you paid went to me. I own the building." Silence fell, heavy as stone. Elaine sank onto the sofa, her face pale. Mark snatched the deed, his fingers trembling as he scanned it, his face draining of color. "This is fake," he muttered. "Check the county records," I said evenly. "I encourage you to." Elaine's voice broke. "Mom, how? Why didn't you tell me?" "Your father saw through Mark before I did," I replied. "I only learned last week." The movers shifted, uncertain. "Ma'am, are we taking the furniture?" one asked. "You can leave," I said. "Nothing moves." Elaine's eyes filled with desperation. "I'm pregnant. Do you want your grandchild on the street?" The words cut deep, but I held firm. No child should learn manipulation is love. The next day, my phone buzzed at sunrise. The Carson City apartment manager's voice was tense. "Mrs. Hale, there's trouble." I drove the hour, heart pounding, the desert stretching wide around me. In the lobby, Mark's voice sliced through the air. "That old woman's a liar. I demand to see the owner." Tenants peered from hallways, whispering, as the manager clutched a folder, pale. I walked in, setting my purse on the counter. "Good morning, Mark." He spun, eyes bloodshot. "You think you own this place?" I called my attorney, Victoria, on speaker. Her voice filled the lobby. "Mrs. Hale is the sole owner of Hale Apartments and 2 other properties. Rent payments go to her account." Mark's fury faltered, his mouth opening, then closing. "You forged it," he hissed. "The county clerk disagrees," I said, my voice steady. Tenants smirked. The truth was undeniable. Mark stormed out, vowing court, the glass doors rattling behind him. The manager exhaled. "Mrs. Hale, I've never seen someone so calm in that kind of rage." I smiled faintly, though my knees trembled. Calm was not fearless. It was a choice not to let fear rule. That night, Elaine came to me, her eyes red, her voice small. She sat at the kitchen table, a half-empty tea mug before her, the lamplight carving shadows under her eyes. "Mark's controlled me for years," she whispered. "It started small, criticizing friends, tracking where I went. Then he made me quit my job, gave me an allowance, demanded receipts for every dime. I stopped deciding anything. It was easier to agree." Her voice cracked. "He said you were dragging me down, too old, too needy." I knew it wasn't true, but I believed him because it meant I didn't have to face the truth. I married a man who never respected me. Tears fell as she continued. "The night with the lawyer, I saw your pain, but I stayed silent. I let him pack your things, convinced myself it was for your good. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm done being his puppet." I handed her Thomas's letter. She read it slowly, tears staining the page, and looked at me with eyes I hadn't seen in years, vulnerable, searching, my daughter resurfacing. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she whispered. I took her hand. "You're here now. That's enough." 2 months later, Mark sued, accusing me of manipulating Elaine and stealing his unborn child. In Reno's courthouse, Elaine gripped my hand, her belly round at 5 months, her face pale with fear. "What if they believe him?" she whispered. "What if I lose my baby?" I squeezed her hand. Truth weighs more than lies. Mark sat across the courtroom, smug, whispering to his polished lawyer, who painted me as a bitter widow destroying a happy marriage. Victoria countered with evidence. Texts where Mark called Elaine useless, recordings of his threats, neighbor statements about his rages echoing through apartment walls. Each piece dismantled his facade. Then the judge, Samuel Ortega, paused, his silver hair catching the light. "Margaret Hale? You worked here 30 years ago, helped me as an intern." Gasps rippled. I nodded. "Yes, for Judge Miller." His eyes softened. "You told me I could do this when no one else did." Mark's lawyer cried conflict, but the judge's gavel cracked. No conflict, only truth. He ruled for us, denying Mark custody, barring contact, and ordering damages for emotional harm. Mark erupted, shouting, but the bailiff escorted him out, his curses fading. 5 years later, Elaine thrives in Sparks, an accountant whose strength has blossomed like the violets she now tends. Lily, my granddaughter, chases butterflies in my garden, her wild curls flying as she whispers, "Grandma, is this magic?" I smile and say yes, because it is. With Thomas's wealth, I founded Haven and Hearth, a non-profit sheltering older women from ungrateful families. From one Reno house, it's grown to 3 across Nevada, with more planned. Letters from women thanking me for their dignity warm my heart, each one a whisper to Thomas, thanking him for his foresight. Judge Ortega visited one spring, his hair grayer but his smile unchanged. "The Retired Judges Association wants to honor you," he said. I declined, but he laughed. Justice needs reminders outside the courtroom. That night, as I rock Lily to sleep and Elaine sets the dinner table, my home pulses with laughter, forgiveness, and the steady rhythm of family rebuilt. Dignity can't be stolen unless you surrender it. Thomas gave me armor, but I found my strength, turning pain into purpose. My story is proof. It's never too late to stand, to forgive wisely, and to begin again.